The broken signature, mining lasers, rhythmic pulse echoed through the corridors of Titan 7 as Sarah Chen made her way to the storage bay. Another 12-hour shift maintaining the asteroid station's life support systems had left her shoulders aching, but she couldn't shake the excitement that had been building all week. Hidden behind a stack of replacement air filters was something that shouldn't exist. Sarah had discovered it 3 days ago, during a routine inspection of the station's outer hull. Embedded in the asteroid's surface, partially buried under centuries of cosmic dust, was what appeared to be some kind of probe. The object was roughly the size of a cargo container, its surface covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow when she wasn't looking directly at them. Most fascinating of all were the symbols carved along its edges, glowing faintly with an inner light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Station Commander Rodriguez had taken one look at Sarah's initial report and immediately classified it as potential salvage. Probably just debris from one of the old colony ships, he'd said dismissively. Toss it in storage until the next supply run. But Sarah knew better. The craftsmanship was unlike anything humanity had ever produced. The metal itself seemed to bend light around its edges, and the symbols appeared to be extending both into and out of the surface simultaneously. Now, as she approached the storage bay with her toolkit, Sarah felt her pulse quicken. She'd been thinking about the probe constantly, sketching the symbols from memory and running theoretical calculations on how its propulsion system might work. Her supervisor, Marcus Webb, thought she was wasting her time. "Chen, you're an environmental systems engineer, not an archaeologist," he'd warned that morning. "Focus on keeping the air scrubbers running, not playing with space junk." But Sarah couldn't help herself. Growing up on Earth's overcrowded stations, she'd always been drawn to puzzles and broken things. Her mother used to joke that Sarah could fix anything with enough time and the right tools. Looking at the probe's damaged sections, she could see clear impact patterns and what appeared to be power conduits that had been severed. Every instinct told her this thing could be repaired. The storage bay was empty except for the usual collection of spare parts and emergency supplies. Sarah had moved the probe to a corner where it wouldn't be disturbed, covering it with a maintenance tarp. As she pulled away the covering, the symbols immediately began pulsing brighter, as if responding to her presence. She'd noticed this phenomenon before, but couldn't explain it. The probe seemed to recognize her somehow. Sarah opened her toolkit and pulled out a portable scanner. The readings were unlike anything in her database. The probe's hull appeared to be composed of materials that shouldn't exist, showing properties of both metal and organic tissue. More intriguingly, there were clear signs of damage to what looked like a central processing core. Hairline fractures ran through crystalline components that reminded Sarah of the quantum processors used in Earth's most advanced computers. Working carefully, Sarah began to clean away the accumulated debris from the probe's surface. As she did, more symbols became visible, forming complex patterns that seemed to tell a story. She photographed everything, planning to study the images later. But as she worked, she noticed something remarkable. The symbols weren't just decorative. They appeared to be functional, like a three-dimensional circuit board printed directly into the probes. Sarah had always approached problems differently than her colleagues. Where others saw complex systems requiring specialized knowledge, she saw patterns in relationships. Looking at the probe's damaged core, she could visualize how the energy should flow, even if she didn't understand the underlying technology. It was like looking at a musical instrument she'd never seen before, but somehow knowing how to play. She started with the most obvious repairs. Several of the crystalline components had been shattered by what appeared to be micrometeorite impacts. Using a molecular adhesive from her toolkit, Sarah carefully reconstructed the damaged sections. As each piece was repaired, the surrounding symbols grew brighter, and she could feel a faint vibration coming from within the probe. Hours passed without Sarah realizing it. The work was incredibly delicate, requiring her to think in 3 dimensions as she traced the flow of what she assumed was the probe's power system. Her background in environmental systems actually proved useful. Life support networks required understanding how different systems interconnected and affected each other. The probe's internal structure followed similar principles, just on a scale and with a complexity she'd never encountered. As Sarah connected the final component in what she believed was the main power coupling, the entire probe suddenly hummed to life. The symbols along its surface blazed with brilliant light, casting dancing patterns across the storage bay walls. For a moment, Sarah thought she'd made a terrible mistake. But then the light settled into a gentle, steady glow, and she realized she'd actually succeeded. The probe was responding to her repairs, but not in any way she'd expected. Instead of simply powering up, it seemed to be communicating. The symbol patterns were shifting and changing, forming new configurations that she somehow understood on an intuitive level. The probe was showing her its memories, displaying images of stars and worlds she'd never seen, of beings that moved through space as easily as humans walked through air. Sarah reached out, tentatively to touch one of the glowing symbols. The moment her finger made contact, her mind was flooded with information. She saw the probe's journey across countless light years, its mission to gather knowledge and share it with those who could understand. She felt the loneliness of centuries drifting through empty space, the desperate hope that someone would find it and care enough to help. But most importantly, she understood that her repairs weren't just fixing broken components. They were adapting the probe's systems to work with human technology, creating something entirely new. Her environmental engineering background, her intuitive approach to complex systems, her willingness to see patterns where others saw chaos, all of it had combined to accomplish something that should have been impossible. What Sarah didn't know was that her work hadn't gone unnoticed. Deep in space, far beyond the reach of human senses, a massive vessel hung motionless among the stars. Its hull was composed of the same reality-bending materials as the probe, and its crew had been monitoring a very special signal for the past several hours. High Counselor Zephyr of the Ethereal Collective stood before the ship's central display, their elongated form seeming to phase in and out of visibility as their emotions shifted. For 300 years, they had searched for the lost probe, following faint energy signatures across half the galaxy. The probe wasn't just technology, it was a sacred artifact, containing the accumulated wisdom of their most revered teachers. Every attempt to recreate or repair similar devices had ended in failure. The techniques required were considered lost arts, known only to the ancient masters who had transcended physical forms centuries ago. Yet somehow, impossibly, the probe was not only functioning again, but transmitting data using methods the collective had never seen. "Counselor," said Navigator Iris, their voice carrying harmonics that spoke of deep concern, "the probe is sharing our most sacred technological principles with the species that repaired it. Should we intervene?" Zephyr watched the data streams flowing from the probe, showing detailed scans of human physiology and technology. The being who had repaired their artifact was sharing the probe's healing capabilities with others of their species. using it to help injured workers in their mining facility. There was no greed, no attempt to weaponize the technology, just a genuine desire to help others. "No," Zephyr said finally, their form solidifying as they reached a decision. "We observe. This human has accomplished what our greatest minds could not. Perhaps there is wisdom in their approach that we have yet to understand." Back on Titan 7, Sarah was discovering the true extent of what she'd awakened. The probe wasn't just responding to her touch, it was learning from her, adapting its functions to complement human physiology and technology. When miner Jake Torres was brought to the medical bay with severe burns from a plasma leak, Sarah instinctively knew the probe could help. She guided the healing energy through makeshift conduits she'd fashioned from standard medical equipment. The probe's systems seamlessly integrated with human medical technology, accelerating Torres's healing in ways that left the station's doctors speechless. Word spread quickly through the small mining community. Sarah's space junk was performing miracles. As she worked late into the night, continuing to explore the probe's capabilities and adapt them for human use, Sarah felt a profound sense of connection to something greater than herself. She was no longer just fixing broken systems. She was building bridges between species, creating possibilities that neither humans nor the probe's original creators had imagined. The probe pulsed gently under her hands, its symbols forming new patterns that seemed almost like words of encouragement. Sarah smiled, feeling more alive and purposeful than she ever had before. She had no way of knowing that her simple act of curiosity and compassion was about to change the course of human history forever. Asterisk. The unexpected Sarah woke to the sound of alarms echoing through Titan 7's corridors. Emergency lights bathed her small quarters in pulsing red as she grabbed her toolkit and rushed toward the command center. After 3 weeks of working with the probe, she'd grown accustomed to the station's routine emergencies, usually power fluctuations or life support glitches that her jury-rigged solutions could handle. But the look of panic on Commander Rodriguez's face told her this was something entirely different. "Chen, get to the observation deck now," Rodriguez barked, his usual dismissive tone replaced by barely controlled fear. "We've got company, and they're asking specifically for the engineer who's been tinkering with that probe." Sarah's blood ran cold. Through the command center's main viewport, she could see shapes moving against the star field. As her eyes adjusted, she realized she was looking at ships unlike anything in human design. They seemed to fold space around themselves, their surfaces shifting between solid matter and pure energy. The largest vessel was Italy, the size of a city, its hull covered in the same flowing symbols she'd grown familiar with on the probe. "How many?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "7 ships that we can detect," replied Communications Officer Martinez, sweat beading on his forehead. "But our sensors keep giving contradictory readings. It's like they exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, as if responding to their conversation." The largest ship moved closer to the asteroid station. Its approach was completely silent, with none of the thruster burns or course corrections human vessels required. It simply glided through space with the fluid grace of a living creature. "They've been broadcasting on all frequencies for the past hour," Martinez continued, his hands shaking as he worked his console. "The message is being translated in real time, but it doesn't make much sense. They keep requesting an audience with the one who awakened the Whispering Star." Sarah felt her knees go weak. That's what they're calling the probe. "Apparently," Rodriguez said, his eyes never leaving the viewport. "Chen, I don't know what you did to that piece of salvage, but you've attracted attention from something way beyond our pay grade. These ships aren't in any of our databases. The technology they're displaying is centuries ahead of anything humanity has developed. Before Sarah could respond, the lights in the command center dimmed and a new voice filled the space. It wasn't coming through the communication system, it seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, speaking directly into their minds. "We are the ethereal collective," the voice said, carrying harmonics that spoke of vast age and profound wisdom. "We seek the one who has shown kindness to our lost child. We mean no harm to your people." Commander Rodriguez looked at Sarah with a mixture of fear and accusation. "Lost child? Chen, what exactly have you been doing down in storage?" Sarah's mouth was dry as she tried to explain. "I found it damaged and tried to repair it. I used it to help injured crew members. I thought I was just fixing broken equipment. But if it belongs to them, ... The one called Sarah Chen," the voice continued, somehow knowing her name despite never having been introduced. "Will you meet with us? Your methods have accomplished what our greatest masters deemed impossible." The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. She'd been working with technology belonging to an alien species so advanced they could speak directly into human minds across the vacuum of space. Her amateur repairs had apparently violated some kind of sacred trust, and now an entire fleet had come to... What? Punish her? Reclaim their property? "I'll go," Sarah said quietly, surprising herself with her own resolve. If they wanted to hurt us, they probably would have done it already. Rodriguez stared at her as if she'd lost her mind. "Chen, you're talking about boarding an alien vessel. We don't know anything about these beings. Their biology, their intentions, hell. We don't even know if their life support systems are compatible with human physiology." "The probe has been adapting to human technology for weeks," Sarah replied, thinking out loud. "If they built it, maybe they understand compatibility better than we do." As if in response to her words, the space near Titan 7 began to shimmer. A smaller craft materialized, its hull flowing like liquid metal. The vessel was beautiful in a way that defied description, its surfaces covered with the same three-dimensional symbols that adorned the probe. "Sarah Chen," the voice spoke again. "We have prepared a vessel suitable for your biology. Will you honor us with your presence?" Looking around the command center at her colleagues' frightened faces, Sarah realized she had no real choice. Whatever she'd started with the probe needed to be finished. She'd always believed that problems were just puzzles waiting to be solved. And this was simply a bigger puzzle than she'd ever encountered. 20 minutes later, Sarah found herself floating through the docking tube that connected Titan 7 to the alien craft. The experience was surreal. The tube itself seemed to be made of the same adaptive material as the probe, molding itself to create perfect environmental seals. As she entered the alien vessel, Sarah was amazed to find the atmosphere perfectly suited to human needs. The interior of the craft was unlike anything she could have imagined. The walls seemed to be alive, flowing with patterns of light that responded to her presence. There were no sharp edges or distinct surfaces. Everything curved and flowed together in organic harmony. It was like being inside a living crystal. "Welcome, Sarah Chen." Sarah turned to see her first ethereal being, and her breath caught in her throat. The creature was tall and graceful, its form seeming to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. When she looked directly at it, she could see a vaguely humanoid shape, but her peripheral vision caught glimpses of wings, tentacles, and geometric patterns that shouldn't have been able to coexist. I am High Counselor Zephyr, the being said, its voice now audible rather than telepathic. I have been searching for our lost whispering star for 3 centuries. I'm sorry, Sarah said immediately. I didn't know it belonged to anyone. I thought it was just debris. If I've damaged something sacred, ... Zephyr's form shifted. Patterns of light flowing across what Sarah assumed was its face in what might have been amusement. Damaged. Child of Earth, you have done the impossible. The whispering star was thought beyond repair. Our most skilled artificers declared it dead. Yet your simple human methods not only restored its function, but enhanced it in ways we never imagined. Asterisk. Sarah felt a mix of relief and confusion. Enhanced it. I just fixed what looked broken. Come, Zephyr said, gesturing toward a flowing doorway that opened at their approach. Let me show you what your simple fixes have accomplished. They entered a chamber that took Sarah's breath away. The room was vast, filled with floating displays that showed star maps, technical diagrams, and streams of data that flowed like living rivers through the air. At the center of it all was a perfect replica of the probe, surrounded by dozens of ethereal beings who were studying its every detail. For 1,000 years. Our people have struggled with the same problem, Zephyr explained as they walked through the displays. Our technology is based on harmony and adaptation. We create devices that grow and change, that respond to their environment and their users' needs. But this very flexibility makes our systems fragile. When something breaks, it cannot simply be repaired. It must be reborn, remade from scratch. Sarah nodded slowly, beginning to understand. But humans fix things differently. We work with what's already there. Exactly, Zephyr's form brightened with excitement. You took our organic adaptive systems and combined them with your mechanical, structural approach. Instead of trying to regrow the damaged components, you supported them with external frameworks. Instead of recreating the original design, you improvised solutions that worked better than the original. One of the floating displays zoomed in to show Sarah's repair work in incredible detail. She could see how her molecular adhesive had not just stuck the broken pieces together, but had actually formed new pathways for the probe's energy systems. Her environmental engineering instincts had led her to create backup systems and redundancies that the original designers had never considered. The healing applications you discovered, Zephyr continued, represent a breakthrough that will save millions of lives across the galaxy. You integrated our biotechnology with your medical devices in ways that enhance both. This is not just repair work. This is evolution, asterisk. Sarah stared at the displays, showing her crude adaptations transformed into elegant solutions. I don't understand. If you're so advanced, how could my basic repairs teach you anything? Zephyr's form shifted again, and Sarah sensed deep respect in the gesture. Because you see problems differently than we do. We think in terms of perfect harmony, of systems that must work exactly as designed. But you think in terms of making things work, period. You see broken as simply another challenge to overcome, not a failure to be discarded. Your people call it jury-rigging, do they not? Another ethereal being interjected, approaching them with what seemed like curiosity. The art of making functional what should not function. We have studied your species for some time, Sarah Chen. Your entire civilization is built on this principle, taking ideas from different sources and combining them in unexpected ways. Sarah felt a sudden surge of pride in her species. We're good at making do with what we have. More than good, Zephyr said solemnly. You have shown us that our pursuit of perfection has blinded us to possibilities. The collective has decided to offer you something unprecedented, the position of Chief Integration Engineer for our entire technological development program. The offer hit Sarah like a physical blow. You want me to work for you? With us, Zephyr corrected. We want to learn from your approach, to understand how human ingenuity can enhance our technology. In return, we offer you knowledge that will advance your species by centuries. Your people's colony ships struggle with life support systems that break down over long journeys. Our adaptive technology could solve those problems forever. Sarah thought about the mining station she'd called home for 3 years, about the constant repairs and jury-rigged solutions that kept them alive in the harsh environment of space. She thought about her colleagues' faces when they'd watched the probe heal Jake Torres's burns, about the possibilities that could open up if humans had access to this kind of technology. There's one condition, Sarah said after a long moment. This knowledge doesn't just go to Earth's governments or corporations. It goes to everyone who needs it. The miners, the colony ships, the frontier stations barely hanging on at the edge of human space. Zephyr's form brightened to an almost blinding intensity. You seek to lift up your entire species, not just yourself. This confirms what we observed in your work with the Whispering Star. You repair not for glory, but because broken things deserve to function. It's what we do, Sarah said simply. As the ethereal ship began its journey toward the first of many planned collaboration sites, Sarah stood at a viewing port, watching Titan 7 fade into the distance. Her simple act of curiosity, her inability to walk past something broken without trying to fix it, had opened a door between species that would change both civilizations forever. The probe, the Whispering Star, now served as more than just a piece of recovered technology. It had become a symbol of what could be accomplished when different perspectives combined, when the human drive to make things work met the ethereal pursuit of perfect harmony. Behind her, dozens of alien engineers worked alongside human specialists who had been recruited from across Earth's colonies. They were designing new fusion reactors for colony ships, adaptive life support systems for deep space exploration, and medical technologies that would eliminate diseases that had plagued humanity for millennia. Sarah Chen, the environmental systems engineer who couldn't resist fixing broken things, had become the bridge between species. And as she watched the stars wheel past the viewport, she smiled, knowing that somewhere out there were more broken things waiting to be fixed, more impossible problems waiting to be solved by the simple human belief that nothing was ever truly beyond repair. Asterisk.